You see, most of us imagine that when everything begins to fall apart, when our plans collapse, our relationships crumble, when the floor gives way beneath us, something has gone terribly wrong, we think life has made a mistake. But that's only because we've been taught to cling, to hold on, to fight against the current. What if the falling apart isn't destruction, but transformation? What if what feels like the end is actually the space through which something greater wants to enter? You cannot be reborn unless you first allow yourself to die to what you were. And so, when life begins to dissolve, when the old structures disintegrate, it's not chaos, it's creation. Because life, in its wisdom, knows exactly what it's doing. Just as a seed must crack before it grows, so too must your old self break before something vast and luminous can emerge. The universe is not punishing you, it's preparing you. And the falling apart you fear so much is, in truth, the beginning of becoming whole. Underneath the surface of every collapse lies a quiet intelligence that most of us fail to recognize. When things begin to unravel, when life seems to lose its structure and meaning, we instinctively resist. We call it chaos, disaster, or failure. But in truth, chaos is life rearranging itself in ways our limited perspective cannot yet comprehend. The mind demands order, predictability, a sense of control. Yet life has never promised us that. It has only promised movement, evolution, and change. Every storm that sweeps through our existence does not come to destroy. It comes to clear space for something we were not ready to receive. It comes to realign us with what we have ignored, to shake loose what we've outgrown, and to remind us that the flow of existence cannot be confined by the fragile architecture of human plans. When you look closely, you'll see that chaos isn't the opposite of order. It's part of the same dance. The cosmos itself began in an explosion, an unimaginable eruption of energy and light. Out of that wild, chaotic birth came stars, galaxies, and eventually us. The same principle governs your life. What appears as disorder is the fertile ground of creation. The moment everything seems to fall apart, life is composing a new arrangement, one that your mind cannot yet read because it's still written in the language of becoming. You may feel lost, as if the path has disappeared, but the truth is the old path was never meant to last forever. Life doesn't lead you in circles, it unfolds you in layers. Each collapse removes the shell of what you were, so that something more authentic can breathe. We often cling to stability as if it were the ultimate goal. But stability is not life, it's the pause between breaths. Life breathes in movement, in transformation, in rhythm. When we experience chaos, we are feeling the pulse of the universe at its most raw and creative. It's as if life is sculpting us, chiseling away the unnecessary. And though it hurts, that pain is the sound of evolution. The person you thought you were begins to dissolve, and that dissolution feels like death because, in a way, it is. The ego thrives on control, on definition, on knowing who it is and what it owns. When chaos arrives, all those definitions become blurred and the ego trembles. It calls the process suffering, but what it really fears is the loss of illusion. You are not the story you tell about yourself, you are the awareness beneath it. And chaos is life's way of reminding you of that truth. If you observe nature, you'll find that nothing stays orderly for long. Forests burn, rivers flood, seasons shift, and yet the earth never worries. Out of the ashes, new life blooms. Out of the flood, fertile soil remains. The universe knows no waste. What looks like destruction is simply transformation wearing another mask. In your own life, when relationships end, when careers dissolve, when the things you built with so much effort begin to crumble, it is not evidence of failure, but of the natural cycle of becoming. You are being reconfigured to hold something new. The patterns that once sustained you can no longer carry the weight of who you are becoming, so they must fall apart. And when they do, it's not chaos, it's reorganization at a higher level, but the mind resists because it loves familiarity. Even pain that is known feels safer than uncertainty. We create routines, identities, and structures, and then we begin to mistake them for reality. When life shakes them apart, we feel betrayed, as if something precious has been stolen. Yet what's being taken away is the false sense of permanence that never truly existed. The universe is far too alive, too dynamic to be captured in rigid forms. Every moment is new, every breath is a beginning. To experience this directly is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it dissolves the illusion of control, liberating because it reveals that you are not separate from the movement itself. Chaos is not happening to you, it is happening through you. Consider the ocean at its surface. Waves crash, foam, and collide, yet beneath the turmoil lies an infinite stillness. The deeper you go, the quieter it becomes. Chaos is the surface of existence, and stillness is its depth. When you learn to watch without resistance, you start to see the beauty in the storm. The noise is only temporary. The ocean itself remains untouched. In the same way, when life rearranges itself, when people leave, plans fail, and identities collapse, you can descend inward to the still point within you that has never changed. There, in that center of awareness, chaos loses its power to frighten you. You begin to see that everything happening is part of a vast intelligence orchestrating the evolution of your soul. And perhaps the reason chaos feels unbearable is because we've been trained to think in straight lines. We want life to move upward, forward, predictably. But life moves in spirals, loops, and waves. It brings you back to the same lessons until you see them differently. It shakes you not to punish, but to awaken. When you start to understand this, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead ask, "What is this teaching me?" The moment you shift that perspective, chaos transforms from enemy to teacher. You begin to see that the disarray has direction, that even in the falling apart, there is a mysterious coherence at work. Imagine a caterpillar dissolving inside its cocoon. From the outside, it looks like destruction. Its body liquefies, its form disintegrates. But within that chaos, a new blueprint is unfolding, invisible yet precise. If you interrupt the process, you destroy the butterfly. So too with your life. When everything feels like it's melting away, don't rush to fix it. Let it dissolve. Let the old form die so that the new one can emerge. The mind will protest, it will scream for clarity, but clarity comes not from resistance, it comes from surrender. Life doesn't need your permission to transform you. It only asks that you stop interfering with its work. When chaos comes, the first instinct is to interpret it as a mistake. But the universe doesn't make mistakes. It only moves in patterns too vast for the human mind to grasp. What we call coincidence, tragedy, or loss is often the realignment of forces beyond our comprehension. Look back at your own life and see how the moments that felt like destruction often led to your greatest growth. The people who left made space for the right ones. The failures pushed you toward your purpose. The breakdowns tore away everything false. You thought you were being dismantled, but you were being refined. You were being prepared for the next rhythm, the next unfolding of your own becoming, and yet, understanding this doesn't mean the process stops hurting. It's human to grieve the old forms. The end of a chapter always leaves silence before the next word appears, but within that silence, something sacred stirs. The same energy that moves galaxies through space is the energy that moves through your pain, reshaping it into wisdom. When life rearranges itself, it uses chaos as the sculptor's tool. Every crack, every fracture, every fall is part of that divine design. The universe is not out to break you, it's out to make you spacious enough to hold more of itself. The more you resist, the longer the suffering lasts. But the moment you trust the flow, you begin to feel its rhythm guiding you. The art is not in avoiding chaos, but in learning to dance with it. To stand in the middle of uncertainty and still feel the pulse of life beating through you. To realize that what's falling apart is not the world, but your attachment to the way it was. The deeper intelligence of life never stops working in your favor, even when it dismantles everything familiar. In time, you will look back and understand that nothing was random. Every collapse was an opening, every loss a clearing, every storm a passageway. Chaos rearranges not to confuse, but to create. The fragments it leaves behind are not ruins. They are the raw materials of rebirth. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it even now, that subtle hum beneath all disorder. It's the sound of the universe recalibrating, the sound of new beginnings quietly forming beneath the noise. It has always been there, waiting for you to notice. When life falls apart, it isn't leaving you in the dark. It's simply turning off the light you've outgrown so you can see a deeper kind of illumination. Chaos is life rearranging itself into the shape of your next awakening. The art of letting things fall apart is one of the most difficult lessons a human being can ever learn. From the moment we are born, we are taught to hold on, to identities, to people, to plans, to our sense of control. We build walls of order around us, believing they will protect us from the unpredictable rhythm of life. And yet, no matter how carefully we arrange our world, life has its own intelligence, its own timing, its own way of unfolding. To let things fall apart is not to give up, but to recognize that clinging only creates suffering. It is to understand that the universe does not move in straight lines. It dances in spirals. It breathes in cycles. It grows through destruction and renewal. When you let things fall apart, you begin to see the illusion of your control. You start to realize that what you thought was holding everything together was often holding you back. The fear of losing becomes the prison of the soul. We grasp at relationships that have already ended, jobs that have lost their meaning, and beliefs that no longer serve us. We patch the cracks, pretending everything is fine, but deep down we know that nothing stays the same forever. The walls we built to keep life predictable eventually crumble, not because we failed, but because life refuses to be tamed. The art lies in allowing that collapse to happen without resistance, to witness it with awareness rather than panic. It is not an easy art, because our minds are wired to fix, to repair, to solve. The moment something begins to break, the ego rushes in, shouting that something must be done. But what if nothing needs to be done? What if the breaking is part of the process? Every time we try to control what is meant to change, we interrupt life's intelligence. We delay the transformation that chaos is trying to bring. The mind cannot stand uncertainty, but the heart knows how to rest in it. To let things fall apart is to trust that even in disorder there is design. It is to believe that there is a deeper rhythm guiding the unraveling, even when everything appears senseless. Letting go is not passivity. It is not indifference. It is an active participation in the mystery of change. It means standing still while the winds of transformation blow through your life, allowing them to carry away everything that is no longer real. It means feeling the pain without rushing to escape it, watching the confusion without trying to fix it, sitting with loss without searching for replacement. It is the practice of surrender, not out of defeat, but out of understanding. The understanding that every ending clears space for something new, and that clinging to the old only suffocates the birth of what wants to come next. There comes a point in every life when the scaffolding begins to shake. The story we tell ourselves about who we are starts to crack, and the roles we've played no longer fit. At first, we resist. We tighten our grip, we fight to maintain the image, we pretend the collapse isn't happening. But the more we resist, the harder life pushes. The cracks widen, the structures crumble, and sooner or later we are left standing in the rubble of what used to be. It is in that moment, when we stop struggling, that the art begins. We learn to breathe amid the ruins, to see beauty in impermanence, to feel peace in the uncertainty. What we thought was an ending turns out to be a threshold. It's remarkable how much of our suffering comes from trying to keep things from falling apart. The fear of change, the desire for control, the endless attempt to maintain appearances. These are the roots of our anxiety. When you begin to practice letting go, you start to feel a kind of spaciousness opening within you. The mind quiets, the heart softens, and a strange calm appears. You realize that you don't have to hold the world together. It was never your job. The river flows whether you swim or not. Life doesn't ask you to control it, only to move with it. When you stop grasping, you begin to float. Everything in nature knows how to let go. Trees shed their leaves, tides retreat, animals move with the seasons. Only the human mind resists the rhythm of life. We hold on to things long after they've served their purpose, and in doing so, we suffer. We forget that death and decay are not the enemies of life, but its companions. Without endings, nothing new could ever begin. Without the falling apart, there would be no space for becoming. To master the art of letting things fall apart is to live in harmony with the same wisdom that moves the stars and the sea. It is to say yes to life in its totality, not just the pleasant parts the ego fears falling apart, because it defines itself through continuity. It says, I am this, I have that, I belong to this. When those definitions collapse, it feels like death. But what really dies is not you, it's the image of you. It's the version of yourself you've been protecting and polishing for years. Beneath it lies something vast, something unconditioned, something real. That's what the fall reveals. In losing your sense of control, you find your true nature. In losing your story, you rediscover your essence. The pieces that scatter aren't pieces of you. They are pieces of illusion breaking away from the truth. There's a certain humility that comes with letting things fall apart. You begin to see that life knows better than your plans. You stop demanding explanations and start listening. The silence that follows a collapse isn't empty. It's full of unseen possibilities. It's as if the universe pauses for a moment, waiting for you to stop clinging before it can move you to where you're meant to be. Every great transformation begins with such a pause, a sacred stillness in which the old dissolves and the new has not yet taken form. Most people fear this in between space, but that's where all true growth happens. That's where you meet yourself without masks, without certainty, without pretense. The art of letting things fall apart also teaches compassion. When you've felt your own structures collapse, you understand the pain of others when theirs do. You stop judging people for their struggles because you've seen what it means to break. You begin to relate not from superiority, but from empathy. You know that every person you meet is carrying the weight of something that's shifting, breaking, or dissolving in their own life. You become gentler, slower to react, more open to love, because love itself is the purest form of letting go, the willingness to let another be exactly as they are, without trying to mold or fix them. Letting things fall apart doesn't mean becoming careless. It means becoming real. It means seeing that your control was always temporary, that your grasp was always partial, that your definitions were always limited. When you finally accept this, a strange freedom arises. You realize that life's beauty lies in its impermanence. The most exquisite sunset fades, the most vibrant flower wilts, the most powerful moment passes. Yet in their transience lies their sacredness. The heart that learns to let things fall apart learns to love without possession, to create without expectation, to live without fear. There are moments when everything within you will scream to hold on. The mind will say, fix it, save it, make it work. But if you can stay still in that storm, if you can breathe without interfering, something miraculous happens. The storm begins to calm, not because you forced it to, but because you allowed it to complete its purpose. Life has its own way of restoring balance once you stop trying to control it. The pieces that are meant to remain will settle back into place, and those that are not will drift away. Your only task is to stay present and let the rearranging happen. Letting things fall apart is not a one-time act, but a continuous practice. Again and again, life will ask you to release, to let go of who you were, what you knew, and what you thought you needed. Each time, It feels like dying a little, and each time you are reborn a little. The art lies not in resisting these deaths, but in embracing them, in trusting that each fall reveals more of who you truly are, in understanding that nothing real can ever be lost, and nothing false can ever be kept forever. What is meant for you will remain, not through force, but through alignment. At some point, you begin to see the strange beauty in the falling apart, the way it strips you down to essentials, the way it humbles you into authenticity, the way it teaches you that peace is not the absence of chaos, but the ability to remain centered within it. You realize that the world outside is always shifting, but the awareness inside remains untouched. That awareness watches everything fall and rise, come and go, live and die, without losing itself in the motion. That awareness is who you are beneath the noise of life. When you rest there, you are no longer afraid of things falling apart, because you have discovered the part of you that never does, and perhaps that is what life has been trying to teach all along, that you are not the structures, not the stories, not the things that crumble. You are the space in which they appear and disappear. The art of letting things fall apart is, in the end, the art of remembering your true nature. It is the art of trusting the intelligence of existence, of allowing the mystery to move through you without resistance. It is not resignation, it is revelation. The revelation that beneath every fall, there is a deeper foundation. Beneath every ending, a quiet beginning waiting to emerge. The universe destroys to recreate. It has always done so. From the birth of stars to the breaking of hearts, creation has always hidden itself inside destruction. We tend to see the end of things as tragedy because we live through the eyes of the ego, which fears losing its shape. But the deeper rhythm of life doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in cycles, dissolving what has completed its purpose to give rise to what must come next. The same force that causes a forest to burn is the one that allows new seeds to grow. The same energy that shatters your plans is the one that leads you to your destiny. Destruction is not cruelty, it is the natural order of renewal. When the universe dismantles what you've built, it is not punishing you, it is inviting you to expand. You may look around and see the pieces of what once was, wondering how it all fell apart so suddenly, but if you could see through the eyes of eternity, you would know that nothing is lost. The form changes, the essence remains. The structure breaks, but the energy continues to move, finding new ways to express itself. What dies on one level is reborn on another. The ending you resist is simply the doorway to the next unfolding. The universe doesn't take away, it transforms. What looks like loss is often a rearrangement in disguise. We are conditioned to believe that destruction means failure. When something ends, we rush to fix it, to rebuild, to make sense of it. But the universe doesn't operate through linear logic. It works through expansion, contraction, death, and rebirth. Just as the tide retreats to return stronger, just as the moon wanes to wax again, every destruction in your life carries the seed of something new. The energy that once held a particular form is being redirected toward a higher purpose. You can see this in your own experiences. The moments when everything seemed to collapse only to lead you to something greater. Every heartbreak that opened your heart wider, every disappointment that cleared your path, every collapse that stripped away what was false. And yet, when you are in the middle of the fall, it rarely feels divine. It feels cruel, senseless, chaotic. The mind cries out, demanding answers, demanding control. But the universe is not cruel, it is precise. It removes only what is not aligned with your deeper becoming. You may not understand the pattern yet because you are standing too close to the tapestry. From within the weave, all you see are the tangled threads, but step back, and a perfect symmetry begins to appear. Destruction, when seen through awareness, reveals itself as intelligent movement. It is life reshaping itself according to a higher geometry. To the seed, the soil feels like burial, yet it is the beginning of life. To the caterpillar, the cocoon feels like confinement, yet it is the threshold to wings. The same is true for you. When everything familiar begins to dissolve, when what you relied upon starts to vanish, it may feel like death, but it is only the death of limitation. The universe must sometimes take away what is small to make room for what is vast. It tears down the walls that keep you confined so that you can see the horizon again. It dismantles your illusions not to hurt you, but to set you free. Every ending, no matter how painful, carries the whisper of something higher trying to be born. If you watch nature closely, you'll see that destruction is not an exception. It's the foundation of its design. Volcanoes destroy landscapes only to create fertile soil. Storms tear apart coastlines only to cleanse and renew them. Lightning strikes a tree, and in its ashes, life begins again. The universe wastes nothing. It recycles everything, including you. Your pain becomes wisdom, your losses become clarity, your endings become openings. What feels like the universe breaking you is the universe sculpting you into the shape of your next evolution. It destroys the version of you that was too small for your destiny. You think it's chaos, but it's craftsmanship on a cosmic scale. The mind wants stability, but life wants expansion. So when you refuse to grow, life pushes. When you cling too tightly, life shakes your grip. When you settle into comfort, life introduces discomfort. Not because it enjoys your suffering, but because it knows that without movement, there is decay. The universe must destroy stagnation to restore vitality. It breaks the glass you've been looking through so that you can finally see without barriers. It removes the supports you depended on so you can find your own strength. It pulls the floor from beneath you not to make you fall, but to show you that you can fly. We are like clay in the hands of an invisible sculptor. The carving hurts, but it is how beauty is shaped. Each time something is taken from you, something unseen is being formed. Each time life closes a door, it opens a deeper passage inside you. The universe works with precision. It dismantles the structures that no longer serve your growth. You might mourn the loss, but if you could see the larger pattern, you would give thanks. What's falling apart is not life's betrayal, it's life's devotion to your becoming. The universe loves you too much to let you stay small. It will keep dismantling everything that confines you until you remember that you were never meant to fit into the limits you created for yourself. Sometimes destruction is the only language life can use to get your attention. When you ignore the gentle whispers, it sends storms. When you deny your intuition, it rearranges your reality. What seems like catastrophe is often the universe's most compassionate intervention. It removes the noise so that you can hear the truth. It dismantles your plans so that you can live your purpose. It shakes your foundation so that you can find the ground within yourself. You may curse the timing, question the meaning, but somewhere beyond the chaos, something divine is orchestrating every detail, and this is why surrender becomes the highest form of wisdom. Not resignation, but trust. Trust that the same intelligence that spins galaxies knows what it's doing in your life. Trust that you are not being punished, you are being prepared. The more you resist, the longer you suffer, the more you trust, the sooner the new form can emerge. Destruction clears space. Without that clearing, nothing new could ever enter. When you stop clinging to the rubble, you begin to see the foundation that was always beneath it. The universe destroys to recreate because it understands that no form can last forever. Change is the only constant, and transformation is its sacred art. Even stars must die to give life to new worlds. In the heart of a supernova, when a star explodes, it scatters the elements that will one day form planets, oceans, and living beings. You and everything you love are made of the ashes of stars that once destroyed themselves. This is not poetic metaphor, it's literal truth. You are the child of cosmic destruction. Without that explosion, there would be no light, no life, no you. The universe has never been afraid to break itself open to birth something new. It asks you to do the same, to break the shell of your identity, to release what no longer vibrates with your truth, to allow the energy of creation to move freely through you. Every time something falls apart, you have a choice, to see it as loss or as transformation. If you see only the breaking, you suffer. If you see the space being created, you awaken. The universe doesn't destroy out of anger, it destroys out of love. It dismantles the false so that the true can stand. When a storm tears through the forest, it clears the underbrush so sunlight can reach the soil again. When life tears through your story, it's clearing away the clutter that blocks your light. What remains after the fall is what's real. Everything else was decoration. Destruction also teaches humility. It reminds you that you are not the architect of the cosmos. You are part of its unfolding. The more you try to control, the more you suffer. The more you align, the more you flow. Destruction becomes less terrifying when you realize it is never total. Something always survives, the awareness, the essence, the presence that witnesses the collapse. That part of you is indestructible. The forms fall away, but the formless remains. The body changes, the mind evolves, the circumstances shift, yet the consciousness that observes it all is eternal. That's the paradox of life. You lose everything only to discover the one thing that can never be lost. It's not that you must seek destruction, but that you must stop fearing it. The universe knows when to dismantle and when to rebuild. You cannot time it, you can only trust it. The fire that burns today will become the warmth that nourishes tomorrow. The collapse that terrifies you now will one day be the story of your awakening. Destruction is not the end of meaning. It is the beginning of depth. The mind sees endings, the soul sees transitions. The ego cries over what's gone, the spirit smiles at what's being born. When you look at life through that lens, every loss becomes a message, every fall a step toward expansion. The universe destroys to recreate because evolution requires dismantling. Stagnation is death disguised as comfort. So it keeps stirring the pot, breaking the shells, disrupting the familiar, urging everything toward higher complexity. This force lives in you as well. Every time you outgrow an old identity, every time you feel restless in a situation that once felt safe, that is the universe within you craving evolution. You are not meant to remain what you were, you are meant to keep unfolding. Destruction, therefore, is not an external punishment but an internal necessity. It's the life within you demanding more space to express itself. Sometimes the destruction is subtle, a quiet ending, a gentle drift away from what no longer resonates. Other times it's sudden, a job lost, a relationship ending, but a plan collapsing overnight. But whether gentle or violent, The purpose is the same: renewal. The universe always trades what is small for what is vast. It never takes without giving. It may remove the things that gave you security, but it replaces them with something deeper: understanding, freedom, authenticity. And once you've tasted that depth, you never want to return to the shallow surface again. To live with this understanding is to live in harmony with the rhythm of existence. You stop clinging to permanence and begin to appreciate impermanence as the essence of life. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this creating through me?" You begin to see destruction not as an interruption, but as an invitation. The invitation to shed the old skin, to rise from the ashes, to become the next version of yourself that life has been waiting to reveal. You understand that nothing true is ever destroyed, only transformed. The universe destroys to recreate because it knows that you are not meant to stay the same forever. The space between what was and what will be is one of the most mysterious and transformative places a human being can ever stand. It is the silent corridor between endings and beginnings, the pause after one breath and before the next. We often try to rush through this space because it feels uncertain, unsteady, undefined. The mind wants to know what comes next, wants to rebuild immediately after something has fallen apart. But this space, this sacred in-between, is where true creation begins. It is where the old dissolves and the new has not yet taken form. To embrace this space is to trust the unseen rhythm of life, to rest inside the unknown without needing to control it. When the old structures crumble, relationships, identities, plans, beliefs, there is a moment where everything feels suspended. You are no longer who you were, but not yet who you will become. This is the moment when the ego panics because it cannot find itself in the familiar forms. It searches for definition, for ground, for certainty. But the deeper intelligence of life invites you not to rush, not to rebuild too soon. It invites you to stay in the emptiness, to let yourself be unmade, to allow silence to speak before sound returns. The space between is not a void, it is a one. It holds the potential of everything that has not yet been born. Most people fear the in-between because it exposes the illusion of control. When we are not firmly anchored in the past or the future, the mind feels naked. It tries to fill the space with noise, with distractions, with premature conclusions. But if you can resist that impulse, if you can sit quietly in the gap, something profound begins to happen. You start to feel a deeper pulse beneath the surface of things, a stillness that is not emptiness but fullness waiting to move. The space between what was and what will be is the birthplace of transformation. It is the moment when you meet yourself without the masks of identity or the projections of expectation. It is where truth breathes. The universe works through such spaces. Day dissolves into night through twilight. Seasons shift through subtle transitions. Even the inhale becomes exhale through a pause. That pause is not meaningless, it is essential. Without it, there would be no rhythm, only chaos. Life expands and contracts like the lungs, and in between those movements lies rest. The in-between is life's way of balancing creation and destruction, birth and death, holding and releasing. To fear it is to fear the very mechanism of existence. When you learn to rest in the interval, you begin to live in harmony with life itself. You stop chasing certainty and start trusting process. It is in these in-between moments that we grow the most, though it rarely feels that way. The ground seems to vanish, the path disappears, and the familiar landmarks fade. You can no longer rely on old patterns, but the new ones have not yet formed. This disorientation is the invitation to awaken. The space between demands faith, not the faith of blind belief, but the faith of direct experience, the kind that knows life has never failed to carry you forward before, even when you didn't understand how. It is here that the ego's grip loosens, because it cannot hold what has no form. And in that loosening, you discover a freedom that control could never give you. This space is not empty of meaning, it is full of it. When life pauses you, when nothing seems to move, when doors stay closed no matter how hard you knock, something invisible is gestating. The roots grow in darkness long before the flower appears in light. You may feel like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, the blueprint of your next becoming is being drawn. The silence is not absence, it is preparation. Just as winter conceals the quiet labor of spring, the in-between conceals the sacred architecture of rebirth. Patience becomes the highest wisdom here, not waiting with frustration, but waiting with trust. We are taught to measure our lives by movement and progress, by outcomes and achievements. So when we find ourselves in stillness, we think something is wrong. But stillness is not stagnation, it is gestation. It's the universe taking a breath before the next creation. The seed does not force itself to sprout before its time. It rests in the dark, trusting the soil, trusting the unseen warmth around it. Likewise, when you are in the in-between, your task is not to force clarity, but to allow mystery. The mind may scream for answers, but the heart knows that truth reveals itself in its own rhythm. You cannot rush awakening any more than you can rush sunrise. There is a profound beauty in this suspended space, though it is subtle and often overlooked. It strips you of everything unnecessary, ambition, control, attachment, and leaves you bare before the reality of what you are. Without the noise of becoming, you begin to sense the presence of being. You start to realize that you are not the roles you play or the stories you tell. You are the awareness that watches them arise and fade. The in-between exposes this awareness in its pure form. It shows you that even when everything external disappears, something within remains unchanged. That presence is what carries you through the transitions of life, but to embrace this space requires courage. The mind hates silence because it cannot define it. It will tempt you with distractions, with premature rebuilding, with the comfort of old habits. It will say, do something, fix something, become something. Yet the deepest growth happens not in doing, but in allowing. The in-between asks you to surrender your identity as the doer, to trust the unseen movement of existence itself. You learn that you do not have to force the unfolding of your life. You only have to stop resisting it. The art is not in creating new certainty, but in resting peacefully amid uncertainty. This space is also the teacher of humility. It shows you that life cannot be controlled by willpower alone. You begin to see how everything unfolds in its own divine timing, how the universe orchestrates far beyond your understanding. What you thought was delay was actually alignment. What you thought was silence was gestation. The in-between teaches you to bow to mystery, to respect the unseen forces that shape your path. You begin to notice synchronicities, small signs, subtle shifts that guide you gently toward the next chapter. You realize that not everything must be planned. Some things must simply be allowed in the in-between. Your relationship with time changes. The past loosens its grip and the future loses its urgency. You begin to live more fully in the present moment, not because you chose to, but because there is nowhere else to stand. The present becomes a kind of vastness, a timeless field where everything is possible yet nothing is certain. You start to see that this is where life actually happens, not in the memories or the expectations, but here in the quiet breath between them. The in-between reveals that presence is the only real foundation and that everything else is transient. Often, this space arrives through loss. The loss of someone you love, the end of a season, the collapse of a dream. In the aftermath, you feel emptied out, stripped bare. The temptation is to fill the emptiness quickly, to find a new relationship, a new goal, a new distraction. But if you can stay with the emptiness, something remarkable unfolds. The emptiness begins to feel alive. What once felt like nothingness begins to shimmer with quiet potential. You start to sense the hum of existence itself, unfiltered by form. This is what mystics call the fertile void, the space where creation gathers before it becomes visible. The space between what was and what will be is also the space of healing. When the old patterns dissolve, the nervous system finally has room to rest. You are no longer reacting, no longer defending, no longer pretending. The body exhales, the mind slows down, the heart begins to process all the emotions that were buried under activity. This is why the in-between can feel heavy at first. It is the moment when everything unprocessed rises to the surface. But if you can face it without running, without judging, it begins to dissolve. Healing doesn't happen through avoidance, it happens through presence. The space between gives you the time and silence needed for that presence to deepen. It is also the place where intuition awakens. When the noise of the old world fades and the new has not yet formed, your inner senses sharpen. You begin to hear whispers that were drowned out before. You start to notice the subtle guidance of life, the gentle pull in a direction you can't quite explain. It's not the mind's logic, but the heart's knowing. The in-between is where you remember how to listen, not to words, but to energy, to rhythm, to resonance. Every great decision, every authentic new beginning arises from this kind of listening. The universe speaks most clearly in silence. The space between also reveals the impermanence of everything we cling to. When you lose something and are forced to stand in the emptiness it leaves behind, you begin to see how all forms are temporary. People change, circumstances shift, identities fade. Nothing lasts forever, yet something eternal runs through it all. The in-between makes you intimate with impermanence, and in that intimacy you find peace. You no longer fear endings because you understand that they are only transformations. You no longer chase beginnings because you know they will arrive naturally when the time is right. You start to dance with time instead of fighting against it. There is a quiet wisdom in those who have learned to live comfortably in the in-between. They no longer rush. They no longer panic when things fall apart. They know that uncertainty is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. They have discovered that every silence hides a new song, every ending hides a new dawn. These are the people who move through life with grace, not because their path is easy, but because they trust the unfolding. They have learned to stand in the unknown and feel at home there. And that is the essence of spiritual maturity, to remain centered while everything else shifts. Eventually, you begin to see that the in-between never truly ends. Life itself is an endless transition, an eternal unfolding between what was and what will be. Every moment dissolves into the next. Every identity gives way to another. Every breath bridges the past and the future. When you realize this, the fear of uncertainty fades. You stop waiting for life to become stable and start living in the flow. You understand that stability is not the absence of change, but the ability to stay aware through it. You begin to see that every pause, every gap, every delay is sacred space, a divine invitation to rest, to trust, to listen. And so, when life places you in that space again, when something ends and the next beginning has not yet arrived, don't rush to escape. Sit quietly. Feel the stillness beneath the discomfort. Let the emptiness teach you. There is more happening there than you can see. The universe is rearranging itself around your becoming. The future is not absent, it is forming delicately, invisibly, perfectly. The space between what was and what will be is where you become who you truly are,